All right, this is Block 8, Pax Americana, Section 1, America, post-war America, with the section beginning the election of 1948. The election of 1948 is a very interesting election. Let's start with the Republicans, actually. The Republicans in 1948 were very confident of victory. They had swept the midterms in 1946. Truman, his popularity was very low. Republican anti-communists kind of kept the heat on the progressive Democrats. The Republicans had nominated the very powerful, very popular governor of New York, Thomas Dewey. Again, he had run also in 1944, lost to Roosevelt. The Republicans nominated him again, and they were very confident that they could finally win an election for the first time since 1928 on the strength of Thomas Dewey. The Democrats were in a bit of a bind. They did not like their president. They did not like Truman. They, in fact, tried to recruit General Eisenhower to run for the Democrats, but Eisenhower said no thank you. So the Democratic Party turned without enthusiasm back to Harry Truman, who was the president at the time, did not enjoy a high approval rating, and was not a particularly popular man whatsoever. And the Democrats had a further problem than that. The Democratic Party was kind of being assaulted from both sides. And candidates ran, the Democratic Party, I don't want to say split, because a split implies kind of right down the middle. But the Democratic Party lost part of its left wing and part of its right wing. And let's take them in turn. The Democrat left wing, the progressive wing of the Democratic Party, did not like in 1948 Truman's support for the Cold War. They did not like Truman's anti-communism. So the left wing of the Democratic Party, led by former President Henry Wallace, split off, and Wallace took Democrat voters with him, progressive Democrat voters, and he ran as a progressive party candidate. The conservative or right-wing segment of the Democratic Party, located in the South, that's your traditional white Southern base of the Democratic Party, the conservative side of the Democratic Party did not like Truman's support for civil rights, did not like his views on American equality, and they split off as well, and they nominated a senator from South Carolina by the name of Strom Thurmond to run on what they called a states' rights platform. And this platform became known as the Dixiecrat platform. In 1948, what happened was at the Democratic Convention, the delegates from 13 states walked out, just like they had in 1860, and nominated Thurmond on a platform of states' rights, that the federal government did not have the right to interfere in racial issues inside the states. And they became known as Dixiecrats. Dixie being the nickname for the South, and they are traditional pro-government, pro-union Democrats, just with an eye towards states' rights, that the federal government did not have the right to interfere in racial issues inside of those states. We have Wallace and the Progressives split off from the left wing of the Democratic Party, which left Truman with the middle of the Democratic Party, but a lot of people said he doesn't have the left of the Democratic Party, he doesn't have the right of the Democratic Party, he is unpopular, Dewey is popular, this is not even going to be a close election. The science of public polling was in its infancy. And because it was in its infancy, it wasn't particularly good. So the night of the election, on election night, everybody in the country pretty much assumed that Dewey would win. And they even printed the next day's newspapers to reflect what they were sure, based on polling data, and what was going to happen. But Harry Truman would not be defeated. Harry Truman went out, he campaigned, he rolled up his sleeves, he went to more states than any other presidential candidate had ever gone to before. He argued against the left wing of his own party, the right wing of his own party, and the Republican Party. And people started coming back to the hard-hitting, hard-nosed, tough as nails Plain, simple, commonsensical Harry Truman. And as it turns out, that despite Truman's disadvantages, he won a solid majority of the popular vote and a solid majority of the electoral vote, winning 303 electoral votes to Dewey's 189. Thurman, the states' rights Dixiecrat, took 39. So Truman was elected in his own right in 1948 and would form his own administration. What he came up with, his domestic platform was known as the Fair Deal, obviously modeled after Roosevelt's New Deal. What the Fair Deal is a continuation of the most fundamental parts of the New Deal, plus an extension. It wants more government support for housing, a higher minimum wage, more price supports for farmers, new public works, an extension of Social Security. All in all of the same stuff that Franklin Roosevelt had begun in the New Deal, Truman wants more of it, bigger of it, in his Fair Deal. However, Truman is not nearly as successful getting his policies pushed across as his predecessor Franklin was, because there are too many Republicans in Congress, plus too many conservative Democrats are now starting to vote against their own Democratic President Truman, and they are siding with the Republican Party on some of these things. The Fair Deal is a mild success at best. Truman does manage to get a higher minimum wage, a housing act, and to get more people eligible for Social Security. But Truman was not a domestic president, really. Truman's presidency is taken up with what historians, it was taken up by what people started very quickly calling the Cold War, the conflict between the United States and the Soviet Union for global hegemony. Thank you.